Hey guys, my name is Ryan Egleson, and I am the founder of the Plano Prompt Engineers Meetup and Prompt Engineers AI platform. My goal is to make AI applications easy to understand and accessible to everyday people. I believe in building enterprise-like solutions, and open source is the best way to democratize AI out of the hands of mega corporations. Over the last couple months, I've been working on a ChatGPT-like clone built on top of LangChain with support for multiple model providers and open source model interfaces so that others can take what I've built and deploy it in their own infrastructure or to solve their clients' use cases. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to deploy that your application yourself. If you would like to contribute, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or join our Slack channel and message me directly. And if you like this content, or even if you hate it, please drop a comment below, and if you like it, I guess, give us a follow or subscribe. Thanks for watching. Okay guys, so before we get started, we're going to need a couple things. The first is we're going to want a GitHub account. The second is we're going to want a provider that we can host our virtual machine on. I'm going to choose DigitalOcean. So after you've created your DigitalOcean account, you're going to go to the top right corner of your project that you have selected, and you're going to select droplets. You're going to select a region for which you want the virtual machine to be hosted in, and we're going to select Ubuntu as our operating system of choice. We're also going to make sure that basic plan, and we are going to select a regular for the CPU options, and I'm going to just choose the $12 a month one. I'm going to shut it down afterwards, but you could probably get away with just using the $6 a month one. We're also going to need to set a password, or you can configure an SSH key for connecting to your virtual machine. Other than that, that should be all we need. I'm going to set a quick host name, Prompt Engineers AI Demo, and then we're going to click the green button, the blue button down here on the right, and go ahead and launch our virtual machine. This is going to take some time to deploy itself, so I'm going to let this finish up, and then we're going to come back and log into our virtual machine. Now that our virtual machine is done being set up, we're going to SSH into our virtual machine. We can do that by going to our command line and typing SSH and then root at the IP address that's given to us by DigitalOcean right here. I'm going to hit enter, and then select yes, and then it's going to ask for the password that we had set for our virtual machine. We're going to go ahead and paste that in. Now that we've logged into our virtual machine, we're going to need to install a few dependencies that we're going to need in order to deploy our application. The first is Docker, and the second is Docker Compose. The easiest way, if you're not familiar on how to install these tools, is to go over to ChatGPT and ask it yourself. The issue that I've been having is ChatGPT's been stalling today, so I'm actually just going to use the application that we're going to be running, that we're actually going to be setting up, because I think this would be a really cool opportunity to see how it works. So I'm going to type in how to install Docker and Docker Compose simply on Ubuntu with sudo privileges. And I probably spelled that wrong because I can never spell privileges right. Looks like I spelled it correct that time. But as you can see, I have GPT-4o enabled here at the top. You can see here are the other models that are available currently. And now we have the instructions for updating our virtual machine code. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to just I'm actually just going to window this. We can do that as well. And I'm going to copy this line. We're going to run the update command. This is going to take a second, so I'm going to pause it. Okay, that finished a little quicker than I expected. Then we need a few commands that we will need to open that back up. Install in order for our system to run properly. So we're going to copy those, we're going to paste them, and we're going to let those install. Hit yes. Then we're going to grab our next command and just keep going down the list until we have everything. Now we're going to install Docker Okay, we can see the Docker is up and running after we ran the systemctl status Docker. We can hit Q to get out of that. And we're just going to double check that we can essentially run the hello world application for Docker. As you can see, it's getting pulled, and it says hello from Docker right here. So we know that Docker is up and running. So we're actually having some trouble with running the exact commands over here, and usually when you start doing this, it's best to just go check out the documentation. So let's go find out what the documentation says for installing Docker Compose. So we're going to type in the search bar, Docker Compose install Ubuntu, and go here. It looks like it's been it's been updated just a tad. So we are going to run this command here. We've already run update, so we don't need that. We're going to run this command here. That looks like it worked. We can skip that part, and then we can just run this one, I believe. Cool. So Docker Compose is installed now. That's all we're going to need to be installed in our virtual machine. And the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to fork the repository so that we can make edits to it if we'd like, or we can contribute back to it if you want to contribute to the open source project. So now we're going to go over to GitHub, and we're going to log into our GitHub account, and then we're going to fork that repository and then be able to utilize it on our virtual machine here. You technically could clone it because it is open source, but if you would like to make your own changes, you're going to want to fork the repository and then clone it from your repository. Okay, so the repository is going to be at promptengineers-ai/LLM server. Once you get here, there will be some buttons here at the top that you're going to want to click in order to fork the repository. So you're going to click here, you're going to say create a new fork, and we're just going to leave it called LLM server, and it'll be installed in my personal account. So I'm going to say create fork. Okay, so as you can see, I'm going to minimize this a little bit. As you can see, the repository has been forked to our own personal repo. So now we're going to select this button here, we're going to copy this, and then we're going to come over to our terminal, and we should have Git installed. As you can see, I do git-v, and we have Git version being shown. So now, we're going to need to log in. Actually, let's just check. Always little, I might have got that wrong. Okay, we don't need to log in because it's open. And so now, if we do ls, you can see here we have LLM server currently installed on our virtual machine. We're going to change directory into the LLM server directory. I'm going to hit ls just to kind of look at what's in there. And as you can see, we have our folders that we have over here in our repository available over here on our virtual machine. Now, in order to get this running, we're going to run docker compose up build. Before we do that, the configuration has the ability to run the Ollama open source library. The issue is this virtual machine doesn't have a GPU, and if you're going to want to use that library, you're going to want to have a GPU available. So the configuration in this Docker Compose file is really for if you're going to run this on your local machine. But in this implementation, we're kind of suggesting that this would be used by an end user or a customer. And we want to deploy this and get it on the open internet. So we're going to essentially comment that out. So just to do that, and I'm going to sudo nano into the Docker Compose file. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. Oh, all right. It's already commented out, so that's good. But as you can see here, you'd have min.io if you were going to use file storage. It's not currently hooked up to use that. That's going to be something on the roadmap to just get files to be able to be stored in there so that you can pull from them if you'd like to. And then also, here is the Ollama service. So if you are going to run this locally or you have a GPU server set up somewhere, you can use this configuration to set that up. But all we need are these three services here: Nginx, Redis, and our API container. One thing that we're going to want to do is there is an Nginx configuration in here, and it's actually going to my domain. And actually, during this installation, I'm going to be setting this up on another domain under the promptengineers.ai domain. And so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to show you how to edit that, and then most likely just show you how to configure this on Cloudflare as well so that you can have your own customized domain. So we know that Docker Compose is good to go. We are going to do an ls real quick. We need to go into the Docker folder, and you see that there is a folder called Nginx. We're going to change directory there, and we have this Nginx conf. So we're going to sudo nano. I don't need to use sudo. I don't know why I'm doing that. But we're going to do nano into the conf, and right here, this is actually where I had the API server. Previously, it's on my personal portfolio site. So actually, we're going to change this to let's call it open source prompt engineers AI. That's going to be the server that we're going to put this on. It's not a great one, but off the top of my head, I just like to get this going. So we have that set. We can double check that by reading the file. You can see that that is set inside of there. If you're not familiar with Nano, you just do Control-O and then Control-O, Enter, Control-X, and then that will close it. It's always muscle memory, so I needed to kind of remind myself. So now, the application should mostly be set up, except that we do need to configure environment variables for our model providers is really what all we need to configure. So we're going to go back to the home directory, and in here, we're going to go to the backend folder, because we actually don't need the front end of this, because we're going to go be deploying that on Netlify. You can use Versal if you'd like. I like Netlify. I'm very used to it. But in here, there should be a... There isn't. Okay, so there should have been a examples, but because it's over here in the repository, so I'm just going to grab it manually. Let me just do an LSA. Yeah, there's no env in here. So we're going to do sudo nano env, and now we have a clean file. We're going to paste this in here. So there are a few environment variables in here, but you actually don't need to set any of them except for the LLM providers. We're not going to be going through and setting up the vector databases quite yet, but if you would like, you would just need to add your API keys here. And also, you don't even need the database URL because we're using SQLite, but if you did want to use something like MySQL or Postgres, you would configure that here for your database URL. The only things we actually need to set are... we're only going to set the OpenAI key for this, but if you would like to use Grok or Anthropic, you would set those here. Okay, so to acquire an OpenAI API key, we're actually going to go over to platform.openai.com doc/overview. This should be the dashboard. Once you get here, you're going to go over to this left side column, you're going to go to API keys, and you're going to create a new API key. Oh, it seems like they've done some updates to the API key system. So I'm going to say PE demo. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. I'm going to just give it all permissions. I'm going to delete this token afterwards. And we're going to copy this token. We're going to come over to our terminal, and we're going to go to the line where OpenAI API key is, and we're going to paste it. We're going to do Control-O, Enter, and Control-X. Okay, so I apologize, guys. There's one more environment variable that we're going to want to set in here. It was something that I ran through as an issue when I did this myself. So we're going to go back into the env file. And we're going to go down to Redis URL. I'm not sure what the reasoning is, but there's some issues going on where this environment variable is not being read from the default value. So what we need to set is we're just going to set Redis at port 6379 and then close it with a single quote. and should be good from there. I'm not sure what's going on. It's not really taking the default values that are set in the src folder for the config. I apologize. This is something I plan on getting fixed. You run through these things in a live demo and you just kind of find out what the issues are going to be, especially when you're recording a video. So I'm going to go back into the env file. I'm going to go to database URL, and I'm going to set this. There are defaults being set, but I'm not really sure why they're not being taken, so that's the reasoning behind this, but I believe, and hopefully, this is the last one that we will need. So I had set the SQLite database URL in the env, and we're going to try this once more. Now we should be good to go ahead and start up the backend. So I'm going to clear out the command line, and from the root directory, we are going to run docker compose up. There's no dash in this version, so I'm going to do docker compose up -- build. I actually named it .env local, so I'm going to go back to this. I apologize. We're going to go back into the backend, and we're going to just rename it from .env to .env local for now. Now I can just double check it by doing an LSA, and we can see .env local is correct. So back up to the directory that has docker compose. We're going to run the docker compose up -- build command again, and it's going to go ahead and start building up our API server, the Redis stack server that we would be using for a local vector database, and Nginx. Okay, so I ran the docker compose up build, and I didn't get an error this time, thankfully. As you can see, the migration rolled itself out, and it's now running on port 8000. To double check this, we should be able to go, well, the port's probably not exposed on this, so let's just do a double check to see. Over to our DigitalOcean account, and we're going to grab the IP address for this current server, and we're going to go enter it in the address bar, and we're going to go to port 8000 and see if it's currently available. It looks like it is. This is actually the API server, and if we go to /docs, you can see that the API is now set up and ready to go. The only thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to register a current user because this is not being set. You could run the seeder, but let's just go ahead and create a user. So I'm going to call it Ryan Test. I'm going to set the email, very easy. I'm going to set it to ryan@test.com and just do Ryan_test. And we're going to make a really easy password of pattest1234. We're going to hit execute, and we can see that that did take, so we know that our API is set up, and we know that we have a user that we can log in as into our interface. The next step is we're going to want to deploy the front end. One thing I want to do before we deploy the front end is I just want to show you how to configure a custom domain over on Cloudflare. So I've already popped into my Cloudflare account, and then you create a website, and then you go to this tab over here on the left side called DNS. Then you're going to create a record, and we're going to create an A record, and we're going to put the prefix or the subdomain to our API or to our our API server. We're going to paste our IP address right here in the A record field, and we're going to click Save. Now we should be able to access this not on the IP address, but on the domain name that we had provided in the Nginx comp. So we're going to type in opensource.promptengineers.ai, and it should redirect us to our API server, which is great because here it is. And you can see if we do /docs, we are now on the API server, and we have our custom domain for our API. All right, we're almost there, guys, and I appreciate you guys for sticking in with me through some of the errors and everything. So the last thing we want to do is we want to deploy our static front-end application. I like to use a service called Netlify, and so you're probably going to go want to register with an account on there. I would do it with your GitHub account that you've created previously, because it will essentially connect to your GitHub account, and then it will essentially deploy the application that you select from your GitHub account, and then we're going to add one environment variable, which is going to be the URL for our API server here, so that our application knows where the API server is to access to make requests against. So over here in Netlify, I've already logged in, and here you can see my other project, but we are going to create a add new site. I'm going to zoom in just a tad. We're going to type add new site. I'm going to click import existing project. I'm going to go select my GitHub that it's going to authenticate against, and then I'm going to find the repository that we forked. So you can see I can type LLM server, and we're going to give it a site name. So we're going to call this Prompt Engineers AI Demo. Check availability. It looks like it's available. Then, in order for our application to be deployed, we have to set it to the front-end folder. So if you look at this directory, you can see that there's a front-end folder, and that's actually where our code resides. So here, we're going to type the base directory is going to be front-end. Make sure we spell that correctly. And then the build command is going to be npm run build. And then the publish directory is going to be frontend.next. And that should be all we need from there. We just need to set our environment variable. So we're going to click here, and the environment variable name is next underscore public API underscore URL. And then the value is going to be the URL for our API. So we can just copy that from the URL bar, paste it here, remove docs because that's not the actual API, it's just the route to the docs. So then we can press deploy. And this is going to take a moment to deploy itself, but we can see if we have any issues by just clicking on this button here and watching the deploy logs. So there's a little bit of a funky thing when you do this deploy. If it does give you issues, just go into the build and deploy settings, and I will show you how to do that if it messes up here, but I'll also show you if it does go through correctly. Okay, so it looks like it's completed. To double check, we're just going to want to make sure we go to the URL from what it deployed at. So we can click this button here. You can see that it gives us some issues. Sometimes I just double check that the site that is configured says that. So this is the issue that I was talking about. What we're going to do is we're going to go over to the settings for this site. We're going to go to deploy settings. We're going to go to build and deploy. And then down here, we're going to select the runtime for Next.js. Once we do that, everything should be good to go. I don't know why they don't, maybe I missed it, but that is a bit annoying that you have to do that. So we're going to click save. Then we're going to go back to the site overview. And then down here, we're going to go to the deploys. And then we're going to go to trigger deploy. And we're just going to clear cache and redeploy the site. After we do this, everything should be okay. We should be able to go to the link and see the application up and running. Okay, moment of truth. It says that it's completed, should be launched. Let's go check it out. I'm going to go back over to site overview, and we're going to click this link. Fingers crossed. There it is. So I have this automatically being set in the front-end application. You're probably going to want to go into the code and remove this, but as the demo, it just makes it easier that you can just click sign in. And as you can see, we're all signed in. So just to check that our API key is up and working, we are going to make a request. So we have the models here. Let's go ahead and just select GPT-4o and give it a shot. So how are you doing today? You can see the request is over here on the right side, and there we go. We know it's up and running. So I'm going to do one more thing because I think this is one of the cooler aspects of having the open source version and doing whatever you'd like with it, is we can take our own images and we can upload them and have it process the images for us. So it's multimodal, or it is accepting multimodal. Apologize about that. I'm going to copy the picture. We're going to create a new chat. We're going to paste it in, and we can click on it and see what the image is. And then we're just going to ask it to create a JSON object that represents this image so that we can see multimodal in action. And as you can see, it took the base 64 image and it is processing on it. And as you can see, we now have a JSON object that represents what this image is. And if you look at it, you can see here's the date and all of the information about it. And it perfectly represented what the text was in that image. So that's going to be it for this. I appreciate you guys watching. I apologize that there was some hiccups along the way. But I hope you guys get a lot of value out of this. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or if you'd like to contribute. I'm always looking for contributors. Also, if you did have RAG hooked up, which is very easy to go set up as long as you configure the environment variables, you can come to the, you can upload a document and you can do RAG over the document here in your chat. So all you would need to do is click that, and it would essentially allow you to do it. I'm going to go over the other applications just so I can show you how that would work. So I'm going to select a document off of my local system. I have my resume here, and we're just going to say summarize the document. It's uploading the document now. It's creating a vector store from it, and as you can see, it retrieved the information out of the document perfectly. I can say create a table of the skills of the candidate. Could have done a little bit better on the prompting, but as you can see, it's generating a table with the details from the document itself. And if we'd like to view that document, we can go ahead and just click on it, and you can see the PDF here and verify the information. So here's the details that it actually used in the table, and then there's the document. So thank you guys again for watching, and look forward to answering any of your questions.